Bill Wilson joins us, president of Americans for Limited Government. Bill, good to have you back on.
Oh, thanks for having me, Lars.
I knew you were the guy to comment on when we got the word yesterday that even as the administration is launching new federal loan guarantees for other high-tech green companies, and the president talked about it in his State of the Union, that we've got the bankruptcy of Ener1, which just a year ago, the praises of Ener1, a battery company, were being sung by the likes of Vice President Joe Biden as we pumped American taxpayer dollars into it, and now it's gone bankrupt and taken all the taxpayer money with it.
Well, taking all the taxpayer money with it and jobs with it. And the bigger problem, I think, is that it was completely something that could have been seen from day one. This shouldn't be a shock to anybody based on the ownership and the history of this company.
Now expand on that, because people are going to think, well, if President Obama and his administration, were doing what their job is, they would have vetted this company thoroughly before they handed it a a stimulus grant of $118.5 million. But in fact, for more than 4 years, I guess more than 3 years, the investment community has known that this company wasn't everything that it claimed to be.
Absolutely. I mean, and look, in July of 2008, the research firm called Citron put out a report, and it labeled Ener1 as a, quote, corporate shell company with a long history of failed businesses based on exaggerated promises. This was an independent analysis that was being distributed to investors around the country and the world, and yet with that on the table and with the proof to back it up, the Obama Energy Department makes $118 million available.
Now tell me this, is the reason we're going to hear that they did this, is it political? Is it lack of oversight? I mean, is there a way from the outside of kind of analyzing why they would have handed all that cash to a company with that kind of background?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, there may be some political connections, but what I think the pattern that seems to be developing, Lars, is that if someone comes in with a halfway plausible sounding plan for a new technology, a green energy program, they were there to get money. And here's a company. It had been around a while, and as the Citron report noted, a lot of failures, a lot of problems, but every time they would have a bankruptcy, they'd simply change their name, and then they'd go off and do it again. And so they apply. They go through all of the procedures for applying for a federal grant. It sounds good. Give them the money. I think it's a problem of absolutely zero oversight on the part of this administration.
Well, see, that's the thing I'm curious about, because I know that there are a lot of people who listen to this show that would love to ascribe everything to politics, and I'm just not going to be one of those people, Bill, that blames everything on George Soros. You know, he certainly gets his share, but I'm not going to blame it all on the people who raise money for the president. I think some of it may be just what is it? There's an old saying about don't try to ascribe to politics what might be ascribed just to plain old incompetence.
Exactly.
Because I'm thinking, look, from the outside, I'm a layperson. I'm not in that business. But if you're sitting there at the Department of Energy and you know that you're going to have people lined up around the block because they know you've got a checkbook where you can write checks for $100 million, $200 million, $500 million, wouldn't you think the first thing you do to protect yourself is say, let's hire one ex-FBI agent or 2 of them or 10 of them, and say every time we get an applicant or 2, we're going to tell the applicant we need to hear everything about your company, all the warts, everything else, and then we're going to put somebody to work looking at the background. And when you describe this pattern of, you go to a certain point, you run out of gas, you declare bankruptcy, change the name, and become something new, it sounds like there's enough public, paper trail that nobody could get away with that without somebody later on coming in and saying, okay, let's trace back the corporate history of this company, and you'd find all these things. Then you'd call the executives in and say, now how do you explain the fact that you've got this track record that doesn't look too great, and you're asking us for $100 million? You're going to have to explain yourself before we give it to you.
Well, I think there are a couple things. One, I don't think even that cursory level of due diligence is being done.
Okay.
I don't think it's being done at energy. I don't think it's being done at many of the areas of the government that are pushing out billions of our tax dollars. And the other part is that I believe there's plenty of indication that those bureaucrats, those government employees in this case in the Department of Energy, were under serious pressure from their bosses, the political appointees, to push money out for clean energy, new technology, green. And that was the political statement. That was the policy statement. And so as a career bureaucrat, you're now being judged not so much by being meticulous or prudent. You're being judged on how many loans can you push out the door for this type of exotic technology. And so I think all the incentives were wrong and all the oversight was gone.
Well, and that's the scary thing about this, because if you think about, I guess if I were a middle-level bureaucrat, I would say, I understand the boss wants me to say yes to a bunch of these things so that he can put them. I think Ener1 ended up as number 67 in this list that the Obama administration put out, saying these are the 100, green job companies that we're backing out there. But wouldn't you be worried that if you're a civil service lifer, that when these things start to land with a thud, they don't even get the dead cat bounce, and they've taken $100 million or $200 million down with them, that somebody long after Barack Obama's done being president, whether it's one term or two, they're going to come back to you and say, you're the guy who had his fingerprints on that project that lost $100 million, and that it's not going to be good for your career long term.
Oh, I don't think any career federal employee thinks that way at all, Lars.
Why is that?
Because they know they can't be fired. It is virtually impossible to fire a federal employee. The process is 3 to 4 years and incredibly onerous. And when you get to the end, they quit so that they can be eligible to rehire at another agency.
Unbelievable.
So the careerists know that there's no consequence for this type of thing. What there might be a consequence for is angering the political boss today. And so if the political boss, in this case Obama appointees, say push out loans to exotic energy firms, then that's how you're judged. And if you get a promotion, if you get a letter of recommendation or commendation in your file, all of that is predicated on what you do to please that political boss today.
Bill, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Keep up the good work. Bill Wilson, President of Americans for Limited Government. You can see what a critical role this organization plays in keeping an eye on what our government is doing. And have a great weekend, Bill.
Thanks, Lars. Take care.
You betcha. Glad to do it.